Good morning, folks. Thank you for being with us today and sharing in this very special dedication, or if you will, rededication ceremony. This is a day that we have looked forward to for a long time, and I think many of you know the story behind how all of this happened and how we lost the original White Coliseum during Hurricane Katrina, and all the problems that we've had along the way. I want to tell all of you, and some of you have heard me tell this story, but I think it bears repeating. About 2 weeks after the storm, I had two community college presidents from Florida call me. Both of those presidents and their institutions had been through Hurricane Ivan and Hurricane Dennis. And they asked could they come and help, what could they do, how could they be of assistance, and I told them, well, we really had a lot of help in here, and a lot of folks were helping out, and that we had a really good insurance policy, and that we would have the buildings rebuilt and then back in place in a couple of years, but I appreciated their help. And both of them said to me, no, you need to understand what's about to happen to you. And here's what's going to happen with your insurance company, here's what's going to happen with FEMA, and you can expect 6 to 10 years. Well now folks, if you start counting up the years and you look back, it's been 9 years that we've been working on this. And just got the keys to the building several weeks ago, and we're very grateful. The one thing that really bothers me, and I've told Ms. White this over the years, and I think she knows this, and I want to tell her family this, my only regret in the whole building is the fact that we were not able to do it in time for Dr. White to see it and to be here. We were able to share architect's rendering with him at one point along the way, and he did get to see that, but we really hate that Dr. White was not able to be with us to share in this great occasion. Certainly the leadership that Marvin White provided for this institution and the growth that he fostered during his time as president certainly are unmatched. And we're very, very grateful for the contributions that he made to the success of this institution. We're very glad to have members of the family here today. Ms. White, Lida Sue, Calvin, Dr. Calvin White, here, and other members of the White family here to share in this special occasion for us. We thank all of you for being here, and we're going to ask, and I'm not going to hold you in this heat very long, let you get inside and take a real close look, and when I'll have some directions for you in just a minute on all of that. But at this time, I'm going to ask you to stand, and we'll ask Shane Maynard, who is one of our assistant men's basketball coach, to deliver our invocation. Shane.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, I would like to take this time to thank you for bringing us all together on this gorgeous fall morning. Thank you for all the blessings you have bestowed upon us. I pray that you will help install the core value of appreciation in everybody associated with this beautiful building, and help us all understand that this is bigger than any individual, program, or school, that this is all because of you. Please look over this building and help bring much success to all current and future student athletes and coaches for years to come. In your name I pray, amen.
Okay, thank you, Shane. You know, when we started talking about who would be an appropriate person for a dedicatory address, the list got real short real quick. The person we finally decided would be the most appropriate person was a person who grew up on this campus, served this institution in many ways over the years, retired as our executive vice president. His family was part of the fabric of this institution and has been for many, many years. But I'm going to call on at this time Dr. John Grant to come and do our dedicatory address. John.
Wow, what a great crowd. Just go on and on. Very impressive. And I also want to welcome all of you here today. And again, these notes are so I don't talk all day. And we do get out of this sun fairly quickly. But thank you, Dr. Lewis, and thank you for asking me to speak here today. It's a great honor. I appreciate it very much. Today we've waited for a long time, and we welcome you, especially the White family. A whole bunch are here today, Calvin all the way from Oklahoma. And we're here to open this wonderful facility, but we're also here to recognize and to honor the person for whom it's named. Dr. Marvin Ross White served this institution in more different capacities than anyone I can think of for a long time. And in the few minutes available to me here today, I want to talk briefly about the ways he served Pearl River. But first, we'll just summarize a few facts about where he came from. Most of them are on this piece of paper here. I saw that. I said, well, I don't have to say anything. It's all on here. But we do want to point out a few of these things. He's a native of Poplarville, and he graduated from this institution twice. First from high school, then from junior college, both from Pearl River Junior College and Agricultural High School. Most of you know that this school started as an agricultural high school in 1909 and remained such until 1960. So he was a two-time graduate. And after graduation, during World War II, he joined the Army and was assigned to the 13th Airborne Division as a paratrooper. He and Marjorie Lee Daniels were married in September of 1945 before he was discharged in January 1946. After their return home to Poplarville, he decided to go to college and went to Millsaps under the GI Bill and with a football scholarship. He and Marjorie Lee lived on campus in a small trailer. After graduation with a BS in mathematics and physical education, he was hired to coach and teach mathematics at Ocean Springs High School. After a short time, they returned to Poplarville for a similar position, teaching high school mathematics and coaching football. He was actually located at the school downtown, where the Poplarville Lower Elementary School is today. But juniors and seniors on the athletic teams went to school on this campus. But in his second year teaching here, he was called back into service during the Korean War. He saw service in Texas and Virginia, training new troops. He, Marjorie Lee, Calvin, and Lida Sue lived in Alexandria, Virginia in a small apartment, and they had no car. By 1953, Garvin Johnston had become president of Pearl River Junior College and Agricultural High School and offered Bud the position of principal of the high school and mathematics teacher. He was one of a number of dedicated individuals in those days in the early 1950s who loved this school and were committed to helping their students learn and be successful. They included Enoch Seal Jr., Graham McDonald, Murphy McBride, Lula Webb, Thelma Batson, Dobie Holden, M.J. Tiernan, and others, including my own father, who also came here to teach in 1953. Folks, let me tell you, to say this place is different from what it was in 1953 is an extreme understatement. I could, but I won't talk about what was right here in this spot. Right over there, the dirt road leading around to where we live. You remember all of that. It's many ways this place has changed, in most ways for the better, but we loved it here then too, didn't we? Well, Bud soon earned a master's degree and went on to serve as registrar, dean of the college. And in 1968, when Dr. Johnston was elected Mississippi Superintendent of Education, he became president of Pearl River Junior College. And during his tenure as president, he earned the degree of Doctor of Education. He served as president for 18 years, longer than any president in the history of the college. The years of Dr. White's long and varied service to Pearl River from 1953 to 1986 was a time of enormous change, as we just mentioned. In In 1960, the 51-year period of existence as an agricultural high school ended as junior and senior high school classes were transferred back to Poplarville schools. But agriculture didn't completely end. College-level classes continued to be taught for several more years, and a herd of cattle remained for years after that. One day while I was teaching here, I was looking for Dr. White one afternoon to discuss some matter, and I found him out near where the softball field is today. He was fixing a fence. The president of the college was fixing a fence himself, and apparently taking out some of his frustration on a fence post. I was told by the business manager, Ron Holmes, years later, how surprised Dr. Ted Alexander was when he became president in 1986 to learn that he had a herd of cattle to deal with. They were sold soon after that. The pace of change would accelerate following Dr. White's becoming president. In the 1960s, the late 60s, there was cultural change with integration. Hurricane Camille caused tremendous destruction in 1969, similar to that caused by Hurricane Katrina in 2005, which led to the rebuilding of White Coliseum and the reason for our presence here today. Constant challenges to provide the funds needed to pay faculty, to build and maintain facilities, and just to keep the grass cut. Dr. Lewis can easily relate to all of these because these challenges persist to this day. The campus saw the construction of new classroom buildings, dormitories, and other structures, and the barns were torn down. In the moments remaining, I would like to share just a few personal things. Bud White, Dr. White. As I wrote my notes for this talk today, I looked up at my Pearl River diploma on the wall. The name M.R. White is on it because he was the dean. There are no adjectives or qualifiers. It just says dean. In 1979, I was blessed to be able to return to Pearl River to teach. You know, there's very little, if any, pretense about Marvin White. When he called me to tell me I was to be recommended to the board, he didn't say this to Dr. White. It was instead, "John, this is Bud." But he was Dr. White whenever I or anyone else addressed him during the years we worked together here. And you generally knew where he stood on an issue. He and I didn't always agree on everything, but he'd make it very clear what his position was on an issue. And if he knew right away that his response to your presentation was going to be no, his arms would go in the air. The second word out of his mouth would be an emphatic no. I leave to your imagination what the first word was. I don't know of anyone who ever presented something to him in a way that they had that happen twice. But if there was a chance he might say yes, he'd listen until he'd heard you out. But when he started drumming his fingers on the desk, he'd heard all he needed to hear, and you just, well, hush and get on out of there. He'd do that with y'all too. Back in 2000, I was privileged to become the Dean of Academic Affairs. Dr. White sought me out. He'd been retired for a number of years. He told me that since I now held the second highest position in the college, it was time for me to join the Rotary Club. Well, being accustomed to doing what he told me to do, I joined the Rotary Club, and I'm still in it. We missed him and Mrs. White a lot here on campus after they moved to Clinton. We still miss you. It just didn't seem right for them not to be here after so long. They're such a huge part of this institution, of this town, of this community. As Dr. Lewis said, one of the regrets we've had here at the college was having to tear down White Coliseum after Hurricane Katrina. And another regret was that this wonderful building we see here today could not be finished while Dr. White was able to see it. He would be so proud of it, just as we are proud of it. we're happy his name is still on it. It'll remain so for the many years that it will serve this college and this community.
Thank you, John. We appreciate those wonderful comments. This time I'm going to call on Dr. Calvin White to come and give a response from the family. Calvin.
John said about everything. The only time you get this many people together is for a funeral. And so I'm tickled to death. We all get to see each other and nobody's getting buried today. I want to thank the college. I want to thank the Board of Trustees. I want to thank you personally. And he was right. It was a long haul, but they got it done. And I appreciate you all coming today. It's a beautiful building. I'm glad Katrina tore the old one down because this is a lot better than what they had before. I don't know how all that worked, but you've got a beautiful building now. Thank y'all for coming.
Thank you, Calvin. I called Miss White yesterday just to have a final conversation with her about today and talk about the ceremony and what we were going to do. And I made my apologies about not getting this building built in time for Dr. White to see it. And she told me, she said, don't worry about that. Said he'll be there in spirit. And so I think we can feel Dr. White's spirit here today. And we're so grateful for Ms. White, for you and all the family for being here today, and for all of you for participating in this wonderful event. Now, just a couple of directions here. We're going to have the ribbon cutting. Following the ribbon cutting, I'm going to ask you just for 1 second, 1 minute or two, to stay seated. Let me give you some directions and some comments about the rest of the day, and then we'll open the building and let everybody come through.